Welcome to Vator Box. I'm Bambi Francisco, and with us once again is Chris Shipley. She's executive producer of Demo, and she's had a lot of influence over technology startups over the last 13 years. Chris was responsible for bringing more than 1,500 products to market, including Java and Palm Pilot. So we're really excited to have her. Chris, thanks for joining us. And of course, we have our Vator Box regular, Ezra Roizen, who is a digital media investment banker. And Ezra, thanks again for being our host. My co-host. Okay, this week we're going to take a look at Diddit, which is, as Ezra would describe it, a Yelp meets OpenTable meets Friendster. So let's watch the pitch.
Hi, I'm Paul Gauthier. I'm the CTO of Diddit. Diddit.com is an online activity guide for everything that's fun to do in the world. So you can come to Diddit, you can find out about anything from snowboarding to surfing to wine to books to movies. Find out about what people have done, hear real reviews, real stories, and then you can tell the community what you've done in your life. Check things off. I've been there, I've done that. Share your stories and become a member of the Diddit community.
Okay, short doesn't really talk about the business model. Probably can't get into that.
I think it's a fine, quick summary. It's a pretty abstract concept, so you gotta kind of get it framed. So I think he did a nice job framing it.
Yeah, I'd like to see him get it real, though. I think it's because it is such an abstract concept. Even just saying, here's how it would be used, or something that gets people to help them get their mind around it. I think a great elevator pitch is one where you leave people wanting more. You entice them to want to spend more time with you. This one, I think, leaves me wondering why. I just don't get enough here to really want to dig down deeper on the business.
Well, maybe the problem, too, is, I mean, I guess with pitches, you have to create a framework, right? What is the problem? And, you know, the problem here is that he wants people to be able to find other people through shared interests. Down to the granular level, but you can kind of do that on Facebook. You know, you can find friends to do certain things and say that and share those experiences with them. So, not sure he's setting up the problem and the opportunity.
Right.
So, but the novelty. So let's talk about just the.
I think that at the end of the day, it's a really interesting problem to solve. How people find stuff to do. So I think there's a lot of. I think everybody sort of has the moment on some point going into the weekend or whatever. What am I going to do this weekend, or what would be a fun thing to do? So I think there's a lot of searching going on about finding stuff. And I actually think the search results aren't that great. So I went and ran a bunch of search results as I was looking at this to see what on Google popped up. So I think that there's a opportunity in the market for more content around things to do, things people like to do, and so on. That I think is the opportunity. On the challenge side, I think that there are. I don't think you're going to find tons and tons and tons of people who are going to want to take the time to really contribute lots of content. So I think my guess is this is a 1%, 99%, 1% contributor, 99% reader voyeur who basically comes in and views that content. So you have to think about the model in the sense that there's going to be a few people who love to put their Flickr photos up and love to share with their hike and whatever. And that's actually going to be a relatively small number of contributors. And then a bunch of other people who are basically going to be readers and consumers of that content. So I think it's not a many-to-many community. It's a few-to-many community, and you have to think of it that way as you begin to design it.
Yeah, I think the challenge here, and you're right, if I could get onto this site and say, I'm bored, what should I do? Or, I've got something, I've got a sled and it's snowing, and how do I toboggan? I don't know, something. If I give something that gives me an answer to those kind of really broad questions, that's interesting to me. I think you can do some discovery here that could be very valuable. But that's a really hard question to solve. I'm bored today, what should I do? The kids are stuck and it's raining, what should we do? If you can answer those questions, that's really valuable. I'm not sure, from what I've seen yet, that this is able to do it. Now, it's early days, and they've got a lot to refine, and so we'll give them credit for trying to tackle a big problem. My concern here, though, is how do you differentiate? And you said that it's Yelp meets Facebook meets all of these other places. If I'm going to chronicle my adventures, I'm likely to do that on my own blog or in my Twitter feed or even in Facebook. I don't know that I'm going to go to yet another site and post my discoveries here. So I think I don't know what the incentive is yet for the contributor, and without that great contribution, to your point, I'm not going to. They're not going to get the audience they need to really make this thing click.
I think you touched a key point there, which is the incentive. And so far, they've done a pretty good job providing a small incentive to get, I think, 750,000 actions on the site. And that is the wanna do button and the did it button. That's really easy. And you and I have spoken about living in a bumper sticker world where it's really nice that, you can interact with people with just one, with a small action. And so I think they've figured out how to do small little things to get the community engaged, but it's the incentive to give them, to get people to actually write bigger columns or posts. That's going to be
and I think the operative word is community. I mean, what is the community?
Right.
I did it. Do I want to say that to the world? I want to stand on the mountaintop and say I did it to however many thousands of people come to the site? Or is that something I want to say to my small group of friends on Facebook or the community people that read my blog? And I don't know. I think that's the real variable that remains to be figured out here.
Yeah, I think if they can create a model where there's a small group, a relatively active group of contributors in various categories, and they can create, medium to upper grade user-generated contributor content on a relatively regular basis around places, and they can create an incentive structure for why people do that, and pictures and so on, and then they can basically SEO the heck out of it. Then they could actually have a business. Because then all of a sudden interesting other opportunities appear. I also think the question becomes, do you do this, did it globally, or do you do it local? And I think the people doing stuff, there is a global aspect, there's a heavy local. Most people spend most of their time local. They're not climbing Everest most of their life. So I think that the reality is you've got to really nail the local thing. Like, what can I do around here? So like, Fanplosion. Fanplosion is a family site that's also on Vator, that's focused around a problem, which is what do I do with my kids this weekend?
In a local area.
In a local setting.
Right. And I spoke with Paul. Paul's one of the co-founders of Ink2Me.
Right.
He's had success before. He has big ambitions for this site. I don't know if you saw that. I guess they're in the release. He wants Diddit to be the Amazon for adventures.
Right.
And I asked him, well, that's great, but even Amazon started selling books.
Right.
So, should you focus on a particular area, particular region, or particular interest? Because Facebook started in Harvard, Yelp started in urban areas. You've got to start small to attract that community.
Exactly. I mean, Amazon stated its ambition when it named the company, but it didn't start as Amazon. Right? And I think that is one of the challenges. I mean, I trust, he's a really smart guy. He's going to experiment quickly, hopefully fail fast, and go on and do something smarter, better in the next iteration of the service, and you got to trust that. But again, I keep coming back to what is my incentive, and I think that's what they need to look at in terms of how do they focus. If I'm going to climb Everest, I need a lot of support to do that. So can this site be about I want to do, and I need the support of the community to do that thing, whether it's climbing Everest or it's losing 10 pounds or it's some other accomplishment that someone wants. So it's not just about the if it's an adventure, help me experience and get ready for that adventure and then really enjoy and share it back. I think if it can focus in that way, there may be some legs here.
Yeah, I do, if they do, to the extent that they get a community, one thing I did like about this site is if you get enough people saying, I want to do something, it's a really cool leading indicator. You have to get enough people, you have to get enough relevant people, not just people just clicking around, but it'd be really interesting for them to be able to spot that, an interest and demand, and maybe map that with some sort of ad or some sort of vendor.
Or
so
services, right? If we've got enough people who say, yeah, I want to go to the Amazon, then here's a wilderness travel, go out and put a trip together. I mean, those kinds of things would be very high value.
Yeah, we've got, 50% of our community hasn't gone to the Amazon, would love to, and, really wants to, it's getting red hot,
I just
if
think
they can show their interest in
go while it's still there. I think the trick is though that you got to do things that are really compelling. If you're going to do the whole human matchmaking, one end of human matchmaking you have quite random stuff. The other have very specific.
Yeah.
So as you move up the agenda of people, from something like just going on a trip to Adult Friend Finder, you find that the volumes change dramatically because the compelling nature of the content changes dramatically. So I think that dating is done really well, but it's because there's a very specific objective to dating. So I think that as you have I want to go, hug a tree, it becomes a little more vague as to what specifically, you're going to be able to find folks.
But there's opportunity in that, though, right?
There
Because
is.
it's hard to find I want to go hug a tree, or I want to go to the Amazon while it's still there, or whatever the mission, right? And I think that was my challenge when I first landed on this site. I don't know what to do next.
Right.
So it didn't help me get engaged with it, and it didn't help me understand what it was about. So there were, big adventures, and there were eat frog legs, you pointed out. Those aren't the same thing. And so I think their challenge early on is focus and motivation.
Yeah.
And I think if they can bring that together and bring active communities together, there's a business model that's not just in advertising, which I think is a hard model today, but in services and other kinds of offerings.
And just one last question. Is the past tense nature of the name compelling? I prefer do it. I think, I think the question becomes, if I'm looking backwards, does it get me excited? I guess there's a sense of accomplishment, recording an accomplishment, hanging my degree on the wall. But is that as compelling as going to get the degree, as getting motivated for the journey, rallying the community support, getting the ship loaded for the big adventure? I mean, I think that, to me, is the actually more exciting aspect of human nature. And I think the trick becomes, how do you get people excited about this?
If you start with from do it to did it, right? You've got this whole process, right? And that gives me a lot of reason to come back and engage, right? I want to do this thing, and now the community's engaged, and now we've done it, and we can post our adventures.
I like Chris's point, though, that you need a community, because when you do something for the first time substantial, it takes a lot of drawing off expertise and resources. So I think if they can tap into that, that's kind of cool.
And they're going to fall short in SEO if you find them in, on Google, but you can land on the page, and like Chris said, you just don't know what else to do. There's no community to support you. On your point about do it and did it, I think they're trying to sort of create this aspirational, service where it's like the how-to service. You go to them because these people are showing you how to do something. Here, people are showing you that they did it and sharing your experience.
Yeah, but they're doing that on Flickr, and they're doing that on Facebook, and they're doing it where they post their photos. I think that makes it more difficult for them to differentiate.
Okay. All right, Ezra, thank you. Chris, thank you, and we're going to have you back again. So Paul and the Diddit team, that's our 2 cents, so hopefully it was helpful. You've been watching Vator Box. I'm Bambi Francisco. We'll see you next time on Vator TV.